Hey guys, so today for dinner, which I may get complaints, very snowy day out there, which is all across the US. Still snowing out there. I didn't move south enough. Anyway, so for dinner tonight, I am making, which I've been wanting to make for a long time, pasta fagioli soup, which means pasta and beans. So I had white beans, which these are white navy beans, soaking overnight. And then now I'm boiling them, so they're almost soft. And meanwhile, I was looking at so many different recipes. So I have the pasta fagioli. This one is Sopranos. This one is David Rocco. This one is extra virgin. And this one is cooking with Nonna. So I looked at 4 different recipes plus one on YouTube. Because when we first moved here, me and John went to a restaurant in Nashville called Valentino's, an Italian restaurant. Ended up being more of a fusion, but they had a really good pasta fagioli soup. As a starter, it was very thick and rich, not brothy at all. And I noticed the 4 recipes that I looked at in the cookbooks all have different consistencies. So I'm looking for something more rich, not brothy. But to start off with, you have to make a sofrito. So the Italian sofrito is celery, carrots, and onions. So I'm going to puree that in my food processor. And you also needed, some of them it was diced tomatoes, and some of them it was tomato puree. So I actually had diced tomatoes, and I pureed it because the boys don't like chunks of tomatoes. So I did that in my magic bullet, and now I'm going to process the sofrito. So there you go. I pureed it. Not to a puree, but more, finely diced. Then I have my cast iron Dutch oven. I have olive oil. I'm going to put a good amount. Oh, I need garlic too. I forgot about the garlic. All right. Anyway, so this is the olive oil I have. Not much left. Let that get hot. Okay, so that's hot. Add the sofrito. There you go. And I have my garlic. Could have thrown it in the blender. Garlic, I like a little more. Okay. Some salt. And pepper. I need 2 hands for the pepper. So I put the pepper. Okay. I'm going to cook that down. A little more oil. There. And let that cook down. Okay. And the video says it's going to take about 10 to 15 minutes. So I'm going to cover that. Okay. So while that's cooking, one recipe had a ham hock. Another recipe had guanciale, which is pork cheek. Another one had pancetta, which is like it is Italian bacon. Another one had none. So I have some frozen ham pieces that were on my ham bone that I froze. So I'm going to throw those in there. Give it some flavor. Plus it'll obviously add some meat to the dish. So I think that's good. You know what? Let me just pour the rest of it in there. Ooh. Now we're going to add the pureed tomatoes. Another recipe asks for tomato paste. So I'm just using what I have, and obviously all the flavors are still the same, just different texture. So let that go. Let me lower the heat. Let that simmer a bit. Beans are nice and tender. I actually added some of the bean water. So you're supposed to add water and, and broth. So I added some of the water to this because I took some of the beans out and I put it in the blender. So I'm going to puree these. So one of the recipes had the pureed beans, another one didn't. This is going to give that thickness, richness, not chunkiness, but just a rich sauce. So I'm going to puree these and add them to the tomatoes. I drained out too much of the water because it didn't really blend. Yeah, let me add some more water. Yep, so like I said, I poured some of the bean water because obviously there's flavor to the water. And then I have my chicken bouillon, so it's going to be like I have broth. I'll just add a little tomato, a little teaspoon or tablespoon to that. Much better. Now it's like hummus. Okay. So okay, so recap. So this is dried beans that I've been soaking overnight and cooking. So there's a lot of hot water in there. The beans are soft, and obviously there's like bean flavor to it. So I put a cup of that water in this pot. So this is simmering. I'm trying to get it to simmer. You got the ham in there. Okay. The tomato puree, the sofrito. So see, this is going to make a nice chunky soup. So now I'm going to add these pureed beans to it, and then you need to add more water. So let me do that. So there you go. Stir that in. I mean, they say up to like 8 or 10 cups of water, but look at this sauce. Okay. So now to have some actual beans, I'm going to pour the rest of that with the water in there. Here we go. I should have started this earlier. Well, I did, but the beans took a long time. There we go. So now I got, where are they? Whole beans in there. Ham. Okay. And then for some more flavor, let's add some bouillon, as if I used chicken stock. And it's going to add a little sodium to it. The most difficult part. There you go. Oh. Mm-mm-mm. So towards the end, they say to make the ditalini, the pasta, separate and then add it at the end. But because I like the soup thicker and, you know, obviously it looks a little watery, if I see that the consistency is still like this, I think I'm going to cook the pasta right in the dish itself. I don't know, I got to see what it's going to look like in about an hour. Oh, and then add some bay leaves that you do remove later. What's that? There you go, and then I'll just fish them out later. I think they said 1, I put 4. So the another recipe that they showed, or that I looked up, they added Tuscan kale, which is delicious, but I don't have Tuscan kale. So I do have some beet greens. So I'm just gonna not small chop them. You know, like I said, the boys won't. They'll fish them out. So I'm just gonna leave them in like bigger pieces for at least me and John. Just a couple of them just to add, you know, color. So I'm going to throw that in there. And that'll just wilt right down. Oh, it's going to be good. And then in my bread machine, I'm just going to make a loaf of bread. And that'll be dinner. So while that is simmering, oh, smells delicious. Making some bread. The 58-minute express bake. And I just followed the recipe that came with in the book with this machine that I got for $20 on a porch pickup from Facebook Buy and Sell for my neighborhood. Love this thing. Okay. So look at that. Exactly the consistency I want. So I'm not going to cook the pasta in here because then it'll absorb all the liquid and then it'll get too thick. So I put this in the back burner and keep it covered. Keep it really low. And then I'm going to make the pasta separate. It got a very important ingredient, which Pecorino Romano doesn't really have a thick rind. But if you have Parmesan Reggiano, something with a thick rind, you put the rind in. And let that simmer like that. The beans are breaking up in there. I'm still waiting for that to get hot. So my water is hot and boiling, and I added the ditalini. And this is the pasta that they use for pasta fagioli, ditalini. The bread is ready. Oh, look how soft with some crust on the sides. That doesn't cut well when it's hot. It's supposed to rest, but it's almost dinner time, so probably just tear into it. So I was telling the boys about the pasta fagioli, and they're like, oh, it's kind of like a Game of Thrones dinner. Thick stew with bread. I'm like, yeah, pretty much. So pasta's almost ready. And then I'm going to pour some of the noodles in the soup here. Look at that. That's, oh. See, I like it chunky and thick like that, not brothy. I got to look for the bay leaves. And then they said for those who have families, with the kids, since kids love pasta more than, bean soup, they said then just add more pasta, like, put a lot of pasta in their bowl and then pour the soup on top like it's a sauce. And the kids will eat it like that. So I have a feeling that's what's going to happen with my boys. They're going to want more pasta and eat it like a pasta sauce instead of a soup. But you have the option. So you can eat it like a pasta sauce, or you can add a little bit of pasta and eat it like a soup. Look at that. My pasta's ready. My soup is ready. So I'm going to add... You know what? I think I'm going to add it per bowl. That's an idea. This is just a soup that's going to just get better over time in a couple days. Yeah, they said, you should add the pasta per bowl because you don't want the pasta to overcook. So I think I'm going to do that. There. I'm going to serve it like that. And then I cut the bread as best as I could because it's still hot. So when it's really hot, it doesn't cut very well. Can't get those thin slices, but the rustic look. But that is dinner tonight.